blast. This is why I hate flying.
What's up, Meta Nerds? This video is all about the Delta-7 Aether Sprite class light interceptor, commonly known as the Jedi Starfighter. It was manufactured by Kuat Engineering Systems, a subsidiary of the larger Kuat drive yards that seems to focus on the company's few starfighter products, being the manufacturer of the Republic's V-Wings, Edit 2 interceptors, and decades later even the early RZ-1 A-Wings. The cost of a new Delta-7 varied widely depending on which version you wanted. The standard model was 180,000 credits, which is 30k more than the later T-65 X-Wing and 3 times that of a standard TIE fighter. If you wanted the most expensive, high-speed variation though, it would cost you 385,000 credits. That's 85k more than even the elite TIE Defender. However, even your most successful spice dealer would be hard-pressed to buy any type of Delta-7, as you're not going to find them at your local dealership. Designed by Wal Explicics, the same man responsible for designing the Victory-class Star Destroyer and many other vessels crucial to the Republic, he worked closely with the Jedi Order to develop ships that were built around their Force abilities. The cockpit was laid out especially to cater to Jedi pilots. The controls were simplified, so that the ship would respond instantly as the pilot sensed the next action through the Force. Many had their standard seats replaced with special meditation chairs to make those long flights across the galaxy a bit more bearable. Everything about its design was intended to make it the fastest and most nimble ship of the time. The frame tried to have one of the smallest profiles possible, at only 8 meters or 26¼ feet long, 3.92 meters or nearly 13 feet wide, and only 1.44 meters, or just under 5 feet tall. This made it about a Senate longer than a TIE fighter, a third as wide as the X-Wing, and 1.5 R2 units tall. If it was trying to keep the peace here on Earth, the Delta-7 would be about a mini-me shorter than 2 Honda Civics, about 2 Civics wide, and about 1.5 Vespa scooters tall.
We haven't got much time. Anakin, do you copy? This is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The ship was so small that the original version could not even fit a standard astromech droid. Instead, they had to make the R3D and RP4 models, which were hardwired into the ship as targeting and navigational aids. The powerful sublight engines bolted onto the small frame were the secrets to its speed. Fitted with 2 J-44 Jet Force sublight engines, the Interceptor had a maximum acceleration of 5,000 G, and had a top atmospheric speed of 1,260 km per hour. That was over 200 kilometers faster than the T-65 X-Wing, 60 kilometers faster than a TIE fighter, and only 40 slower than its successor, the A-Wing. But there were 2 main trade-offs with this incredible speed. First was deployment time. Due to their compact size, the J-44 engines and unusually small reactor tanks would need to be refueled every 5 hours. Similarly, the fighter's small size limited its life support systems, limiting it to only storing 5 hours worth of airtime. Another trade-off was that, unlike most starfighters of the time, the Delta-7 had no built-in hyperdrive. To get around this, each one had a Sleer 31 hyperspace ring that the Delta-7 could dock with when the pilot needed to leave the system. This actually helped compensate for the fighter's limited range, because when it was docked, it also refueled those sublight engines and refreshed its air supply. With the hyperspace ring, the Delta-7 had an impressive Class 1 hyperspace rating, equal to most other starfighters like the X-Wing, but even faster than most capital ships, with the Class 2 being on most CIS and Imperial Star Destroyers. The Delta-7 was designed and built when the galaxy was still at peace, and as such sported the diplomatic burgundy-red paint color, which symbolized diplomatic immunity, and is seen on a lot of official Republic ships like the Consular-class cruiser. And for defense, it featured a Surplex J4 deflector generator, but as seen with Obi-Wan's dogfight with Jango Fett's Slave 1, it could not take many hits. The fighter was armed with a pair of Tameco SDS-85 dual laser cannons, but it was never really intended to participate in heavy combat, just your occasional space battle with local pirates. And for those early years of deployment, that was more than enough. Replacing its predecessor model, the Delta-6, it would enter into service at least as early as 32 BBY. Qui-Gon would take his personal blue version on a mission to discover how to retain his consciousness after death. Yoda was also seen to have a customized, smaller version that he could fly on his mission to Vragadar. 4 years later, Master Depa Billaba would use her Delta-7 to escort and defend a relief mission from some pirates. By 27 BBY, Obi-Wan Kenobi had enough experience flying these things that he transitioned to the 2-pilot civilian model, the Delta-12 Sky Sprite, a ship that he and Anakin flew to the Outbound Flight Project before being recalled. Master Saesee Tiin, one of the Order's premier pilots, was unsatisfied with the standard Delta-7's already impressive capabilities, so he customized 2 to his own specifications. He installed 4 additional quad-pulse laser cannons behind a pair of breakaway panels in order to provide an increase in its firepower when entering flight mode. He also managed to fit a Class 3 hyperdrive into its frame, but as this was as slow as a Gazanti-class cruiser, he would still prefer the hyperdrive ring when he was in a hurry. Jedi Master AUDIBLE would test flight one of these modified Delta-7s when fighting Captain Kavik Toth.
Nice work, Master Gallia. The prototype is quite effective.
And I was only flying at half speed.
Due to its successful performance, the remainder of these fighters in the Jedi fleet were modified to SACI 10 standards. A full demonstration of the Delta-7's capabilities and limitations will be seen when it was used by Obi-Wan to investigate the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala. The fighter was able to go from Coruscant to the far-off Camino, but would fall short in combat over Geonosis. Despite its speed and maneuverability, and the pilot's strong connection to the Force, Jango's Slave One kept close and managed to blast through the Starfighter's shields. Kenobi only managed to survive by releasing the ship's spare parts like chaff, intercepting the missiles and faking his death while he hid out in the asteroid belt. Early into the Clone Wars, it was determined that the original Delta-7, developed and intended to serve in peacetime, would be phased out of use by the Jedi. Taking the lessons learned over a decade, Kuat Systems Engineering would develop the upgraded Delta-7B. The primary distinction between the two was that the newer 7B featured a centered droid socket, allowing it to fit a full-sized astromech unit. Any other distinctions were kept confidential by the Republic, but it may have been inspired by Anakin's Azure Angel, a ridiculously upgraded Delta-7. Not all Jedi would choose to upgrade to the 7B, or even later Eta 2. As we see, Master Plo Koon would be flying his personal blue and white Delta-7 during the capture of Cato Neimoidia, where he was shot down by his wingmen during Order 66. Delta-7s would be a rare sight in the galaxy after the Clone Wars, but some were acquired and refitted for use by the Rebel Alliance. Wedge Antilles would notably find and repair an abandoned one on Geonosis after his X-Wing was shot down during the retreat from Hoth. Proving just how accurate and durable the fighter's design was, even 30 years later, Antilles was able to use it to take out several squadrons of TIE fighters, TIE bombers, and TIE interceptors. And through some really genius plot engineering, they even found room for a ton of Void 7 seismic charges, capable of taking out Imperial escort carriers. Antilles was able to find a still operational hyperdrive ring, and would take this fighter to rejoin the Rebel fleet. The Delta-7's design and concept would have such an impact that it would influence a ton of later starfighter designs. The concept of a small, lightly equipped fighter would go on to inspire the Republic V-Wing, which actually is the inspiration for the TIE Fighter series. While Explicix would deliberately base the layout of the A-Wing on the Delta-7, which we can really appreciate if we take a look under the panels. Like on the A-Wing, the Delta-7 had the fighter's shield generator and its accompanying radiator directly behind the cockpit, providing maximum protection for the pilot and life support systems just in front of it. Moving forward, we can see that the Delta-7 had deflector shield power hubs positioned along its length, which let the pilot angle the deflectors as needed, just like the later A-Wing. The peacetime Delta-7 didn't have the sophisticated sensor jamming equipment found on the A-Wing, but it did have a whole suite of advanced sensor and communication equipment up in the nose that was powerful enough to send a clear, real-time transmission from Camino all the way to Coruscant. Working back, we can see that the main reactor was tied directly to the ship's set of dual laser cannons, but the use of hoses to supply Debana gas shows that these were still standard plasma bolt weapons, not the more advanced pure laser weapons found on the later RZ-2 A-Wing. Few details are provided about the engine systems, but we do see that they have this electromagnetic nozzle built into them, which allows for some thrust vectoring. So that's it for its history and breakdown, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. Originally, it was designed to be a stormtrooper fighter and used during the Battle of Geonosis, and the wedge shape was meant to foreshadow the design of the Star Destroyers. And there's an error in Episode 2, where inside of the cockpit we see that the display screens are using the Star Wars 76 script, not Arabesh. Additional information comes from Star Wars Complete Cross-Sections, the art of Episode 2, and the Clone Wars Campaign Guide. If you want to connect with us on social media, find ways that you can help support the channel for free, or check out our Patreon and PayPal, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon, but most important of all, remember, flying is for droids, and the Force will be with you, always.